The notification came at 7:14 on a Tuesday morning. I was 23 weeks pregnant, and I had just sat down with my first coffee of the day. The single decaf I had been allowing myself, and my phone lit up with an Instagram tag. My mother-in-law Donna had tagged me in a post. I opened it. There was a photograph of a golden retriever puppy sitting in a wicker basket with a pink ribbon around its collar. The puppy had the particular expression of golden retrievers, the absolute unearned confidence of a dog who has decided it owns the room. Donna had captioned the photograph, "Meet little Nora, our newest family member. So much love in this tiny face." She had tagged me, my husband Jake, and Jake's Aunt Carol, who had already liked the post. So had 11 other people, most of them family, all of them people who, 9 days earlier, had not known any name associated with our pregnancy because we had told no one, except Donna. We had told Donna. We had told her at dinner 9 days ago, just the 3 of us, because she had asked directly what names we were considering. And Jake had squeezed my hand under the table, and I had nodded, and he had said, "Mom, we have decided. We are going to name her Nora." Donna had looked at us for a long moment. She had said, "Nora." She had said it the way you say a word you are trying to taste. She had said, "That is beautiful." She had said, "Your grandmother would have loved it." Jake's eyes had gone soft. I had thought, this is the right moment, the right name, the right people. That had been 9 days ago. I put the coffee down. I read the caption again. "Meet little Nora." I put the phone face down on the table. I looked at the coffee going cold. I said out loud, to nobody, "She named the dog Nora. My name is Emma. I am 33 years old. My husband Jake is 35. Our daughter is now 14 months old. This is the story of the name we lost, the name we found, the dog we were eventually handed, and the particular satisfaction of an ending that Donna did not see coming, because she had not thought more than one move ahead. She very rarely did. Let me tell you about Donna first, because the dog was not the first time, and it will not be the last time. And if you are going to understand why this particular Tuesday morning sat in my chest for as long as it did, you need to understand the pattern it came from. Donna is 60 years old. She is Jake's mother, and she is the kind of person who exists most fully in the moment of announcement. Not the moment after. Not the long, quiet aftermath of a thing. The announcement itself. The telling. The being the one who knows and shares and is present at the center of information. She had announced Jake's college acceptance to his extended family before he had finished reading the letter himself. She had told half of her church that Jake and I were engaged before we had told my own parents. When my mother-in-law finds out something she considers significant, she does not rest with the knowledge. She releases it into the world, into the family network, into the air of every room she walks through. Jake had grown up with this. He had a particular accommodation of it. A managed tolerance that looked like nothing was wrong right up until the moment it was very wrong. I had learned to see the specific tightness around his eyes when she did something that required the tolerance to work harder than usual. The name had required everything it had. Jake saw the notification 20 minutes after I did. He came downstairs and I was still sitting at the table and the coffee was still untouched, and he looked at me and said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Check Instagram." He picked up his phone. He was quiet for approximately 15 seconds. Then he put the phone down on the table and sat down across from me. We looked at each other. He said, "I am going to call her." I said, "Jake." He said, "Emma." I said, "I need you to hear me before you call her." He said, "Okay." I said, "The problem is not the dog." He said, "I know." I said, "The problem is not even the name." He said, "I know that too." I said, "The problem is that 400 people in your family network are going to see that post today and tomorrow and next week, and every one of them is going to store the word Nora next to an image of a golden retriever puppy. He said yes. I said, and when our daughter is born, and we say her name, the first thing that will register for your Aunt Carol and your cousin Matt, and your second cousin from Portland who liked the post in the first hour, is that dog. He was quiet. I said, I want you to sit with that before you call her. He sat with it. Then he said, I understand why you are upset. I said, I need more than I understand why you are upset. I need you to tell me what you actually think about what she did. He looked at me carefully. He said, I think she wanted something to announce, and our name was in her hands, and she used it. I said, without asking. He said, without asking. I said, knowing we had not told anyone else. He said, yes. I said, so she knew it was ours and she took it anyway. He said, yes. He said, I am sorry. I said, I know you are. I said, call her. He called her from the kitchen while I sat at the table. I could hear his end of the conversation. He said, Mom, did you name the dog Nora? She said yes. She had fallen in love with the name, and the puppy had the right energy for it. He said, Mom, that is our daughter's name. She said it was also a dog's name, and many names are shared by people and pets, and it was not a big deal. He said it is a big deal. She said she did not see why. He said because you knew it was our name, and you used it without asking, and you posted it publicly, to the whole family before we had even told anyone. She said she had not thought of it that way. He said, I need you to think of it that way. She said she would take the post down if it would make Emma feel better. He said it is not about making Emma feel better. It is about whether what you did was okay. She said she was sorry if it had caused upset. I noted the phrasing. Sorry if, not sorry that. He came back to the table. He said she will take the post down. I said, how many people have already seen it? He looked at his phone. He said 347 likes. I said yes. He said the post being down does not undo 347 impressions. I said no. He said so. I said, so we have a decision to make. I got up and poured the cold coffee down the drain and made a fresh one. And I said to Jake, I need to know if the name still feels like ours to you. He said, what do you mean? I said, I mean, does it still feel like it belongs to our daughter when you say it out loud right now? He said, Nora. He was quiet. He said, it sounds like a dog. I said, yes. He said, that is so unfair. I said, I know. He said, we have been saying that name to ourselves for 8 months. I said, I know. He said, we talked about what it meant, the origin of it, what we wanted her to carry with her. I said, I know all of that. And I am asking you if it still feels like ours. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, we need to find her a new name. I said, yes, we do. He said, I am furious. I said, I know you are. I said, let's be furious and also find her a new name. We spent the next 2 evenings with the list we had discarded in the months before we landed on Nora. We went back through it. We tried names out loud. Some of them felt borrowed. Some of them felt like we were choosing from a menu. And then Jake said one name in the middle of a Tuesday evening when we were sitting on the couch, and I had the list on my phone, and he just said it without it being on the list. He said, what about Eloise? I looked up from the phone. He said, I don't know where that came from. I said, it just came from wherever names come from when they are right. He said, does it feel right? I said, say it again. He said, Eloise. I said, yes. That one. That is hers. Before we could move forward, I needed to verify my own logic, because there was a version of this where I was overreacting, and the post would fade, and Nora would become our daughter's name, and the family would simply attach the name to the child rather than the dog. I'm a person who tests hypotheses. It is what I do at work, and it is what I do when I need to know if my feeling about something is accurate. I called Jake's Aunt Carol. Not about the name. I called her about something else. Something routine. And near the end of the call I said, oh, Carol, I have been trying to think of a name for our next houseplant. Something that feels right. She laughed. She said, "What kind of plant?" I said, "A small one with curly leaves." She said, "Oh, what about Nora?" She said, "That is a sweet name. Donna just named her new puppy that, and it is so fitting for something small and fluffy." I said, "That is funny." I said, "I will think about it." I hung up and I texted Jake one word. "Aunt Carol." He wrote back, "Plant test?" I wrote back, "Immediate Donna's Puppy Association." Zero hesitation. He did not text back for a few minutes. Then he wrote, "Eloise." I wrote, "Eloise." That was the end of the Nora conversation. That was also, as it turned out, only the beginning of the Donna conversation. The baby shower was 8 weeks later. We had decided not to tell anyone the new name until the shower, partly because we wanted the reveal to be ours, and partly because if Donna was going to have any chance of tagging a pet or a houseplant with Eloise before our daughter arrived, we were not giving her the window. Jake told his mother that we had changed the name and that we would share it at the shower. Donna said she hoped she had not caused any difficulty. Jake said the name had changed for personal reasons. She accepted this with the graceful suspension of someone who chose not to investigate things they might not like the answer to. At the shower, 14 people, my mother asked me directly why we had changed the name. She was not being aggressive. She just knew us well enough to know that we had chosen Nora for reasons and wanted to understand the shift. I told her the truth. I told it quietly, at the table, to her, and to Jake's cousin Sarah, who was sitting beside her. I said Donna had named her new dog Nora 9 days after we told her our name. I said she had posted it to Instagram. I said 347 people had associated the name with the puppy before we had told a single one of them. My mother looked at me. She said, "She named the dog." I said, "She named the dog." Sarah said, "The dog." I said, "The dog." They were both quiet for a moment. Then my mother said, "And she didn't think to ask." I said she did not think to ask. Sarah looked across the room to where Donna was standing talking to Jake's uncle. Sarah looked back at me. She said, "I am going to need a moment to process this." I said, "Take your time." The information moved through the table. Tables are efficient. By the time the dessert was served, 8 of the 14 people at the shower knew the story. Not because I had broadcast it, because when you tell the truth in a small room it travels. Donna arrived late, 40 minutes into the shower, which was its own small statement. She came in warm and effusive and began to circulate. I watched the room adjust to her. Not dramatically, but I knew every person there, and I could read the specific calibration people make when they have just learned something about someone and are deciding how to hold it while looking at them. She made her way to me eventually. She said, "You look wonderful." I said, "Thank you." She said, "I have not heard the new name yet. Is it something you are keeping for the birth?" I said, "We will tell everyone at the shower announcement." She said, "How exciting." She patted my hand. I looked at her hand on mine. I thought about 347 likes. I thought about Aunt Carol and the plant and Donna's Puppy Association with zero hesitation. I thought about the name we had carried for 8 months and how it had felt like something we had built, and how it had been handed to a golden retriever without ceremony or permission. I said, "Yes, Donna. It is very exciting." I did not say anything else. She moved on. Jake squeezed my knee under the table. I did not look at him. I just put my hand over his. That was enough. Eloise was born on a Thursday in October. 7 pounds 4 ounces. She had Jake's eyebrows and my stubbornness, which we could already detect at 48 hours old from the way she refused to be put down, without registering her position on the matter. She was, from the first moment I held her, completely and recognizably herself. Not Nora. Eloise. The name fit her the way the right names fit. Not like a label, but like a description. Like we had not chosen it for her, but had identified it. Jake looked at her and said, "Eloise." She did not respond because she was 14 hours old. But the name landed in the room the right way, and we both felt it. Donna came to the hospital. She came the second day, which was what we had asked, one day for just the three of us first. She came into the room and she looked at Eloise in the bassinet, and her face did the thing that faces do when they encounter a very new baby. That involuntary complete openness. She said, "Oh, just oh." She held her for 20 minutes. She was quiet. She asked if she could take a photo. I said yes. She took the photo. She did not post it. She showed it to Jake and said, "Is it okay if I send this to your uncle?" He said yes. She sent it to his uncle and nobody else. I noticed this. I did not say anything about it, but I noticed it the way I noticed all the small adjustments people make when they understand, even without it being said, that they are being watched by someone who is paying attention. The shower story had traveled further than the shower. Jake's cousin Sarah had told Jake's cousin Matt, who had told Jake's uncle, who had, at some point in the chain, said something to Donna, because 3 weeks after Eloise came home, Donna called Jake and said she wanted to address something. She said she had heard that people at the shower had been told about the dog name. Jake said yes. She said she had not known that we were upset about it. He said, "Mom, I told you we were." She said she had not understood the extent. He said I said it was our daughter's name, and that you had taken it without asking. She said she had thought it would blow over. He said it did not blow over. It changed the name our daughter carries for the rest of her life. Donna was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I did not think of it that way." Jake said, "I know." He said, "I need you to think of it that way now." She said she was sorry. This time she said it without the conditional. Not sorry if. Sorry. Jake told me this when he came off the call, and I sat with the difference between the two phrasings for a moment, because the difference mattered. It was a small thing. That small things are sometimes the measure of whether someone has actually understood something or is just managing it. She had understood something. Here is the part of the story where I tell you about the dog, because this is the part that I have told exactly 4 people in real life, all of them close friends. All of them sworn to hysterical silence, because the dog part is the part that makes the story complete in a way that no amount of planning could have produced. 4 months after Eloise was born, Donna called Jake and said she needed to talk to him about Nora, the dog. She said she had underestimated the commitment a puppy required. She said the puppy had destroyed 2 pairs of shoes and a corner of her kitchen baseboard and had separation anxiety that required a level of constant presence she had not anticipated. She said she had tried everything. She said she loved the dog, but she was not able to give it what it needed. She said she was going to surrender it to a rescue organization, unless someone in the family wanted to take it. She said she wanted to ask family first. Jake called me from the other room. He came in and stood in the doorway with an expression I had never seen on his face before. It was the expression of someone who has just been handed the most perfectly constructed ironic ending to a story and does not know whether to laugh or simply receive it in respectful silence. He said, "Mum wants to know if we want the dog." I looked at him. I said, "The dog." He said, "Nora." I said, "Donna wants us to take a dog named Nora." He said, "Yes." I said nothing for approximately 10 seconds. Then I said, "We are taking the dog." He said, "I thought you would say that." I said, "And we are renaming her." He said, "I thought you would say that too." I said, "What are we renaming her?" He said, "I think you know." I said, "Eloise already has her name." He said, "Yes, she does." I said, "So the dog's name is Nora?" He looked at me. He said, "The dog's name is Nora. We drove to Donna's house the following Saturday. We loaded the dog, who was now 5 months old, and had the unearned confidence of a golden retriever who has recently destroyed a kitchen, baseboard and considers it an achievement, into the back of our car. Donna said goodbye to the dog with genuine emotion. She said, "Take good care of her." Jake said, "We will." He said, "She is going to a good home." Donna looked at Eloise in the car seat, who was 4 months old and asleep. She said, "You have a beautiful family." Jake said, "I know." Donna said, "I know I have not always made things easy." Jake said, "No." She said, "I am trying to do better." He said, "I know." On the drive home, Jake said, "So the name lives in our house now." I said, "On our terms." He said, "In our house." I said, "With our dog." He said, "Named Nora." I said, "Named Nora." He laughed. Not the short laugh of something slightly funny. The long laugh of something that is absurd and perfect and completely your own. I laughed too. In the back seat, Eloise slept, and the dog, who was now named Nora on her new tag that we had ordered from a pet store kiosk on the way home, put her head on the edge of Eloise's car seat and stayed there for the entire drive. Eloise slept. Nora kept watch. That was the beginning of the two of them. Eloise is 14 months old now. Nora is 17 months old. They have developed the specific relationship of a toddler and a medium-sized dog who grew up together from the beginning, which is to say a relationship of complete mutual confidence. Eloise has never in her life not Nora. Nora has never in her life not known Eloise. They share the morning light in the kitchen. They share the afternoon rug in the living room. Eloise has learned to say Nora before she learned to say many other words, which I find completely fitting. When someone new comes to our house and meets Eloise and meets Nora, they say, "Oh, what a sweet dog. What is her name?" We say Nora. They say, "Oh, and is this Eloise?" We say yes. They say beautiful names. We say thank you. We chose them carefully. We do not elaborate. There is an Instagram post that still exists, archived now but technically accessible, with 347 likes and a caption that says, "Meet little Nora, our newest family member," and a photograph of a golden retriever puppy with a pink ribbon. If you look at that post now, it is about our dog who lives in our house, who watches over our daughter in the mornings, who destroyed a kitchen baseboard at Donna's house, and has never once attempted to destroy anything at ours, because things that belong somewhere behave differently. They just do. Donna comes to visit on the second Sunday of the month. She plays with Eloise on the floor, and she takes photographs she sends only to Jake's uncle. She does not post them publicly without asking. She asked once, and we said she could post one. And she posted one with our blessing and tagged nobody, and wrote a caption that did not announce anything, that simply said, "Sunday mornings." That was all. Sunday mornings. That was enough. I still have the Instagram notification on my phone. Not the post. The notification that arrived at 7:14 on a Tuesday morning with a decaf. I had not drunk yet, and a name we thought we had lost. Meet little Nora. She is asleep in our living room right now, on the rug, under the window where the afternoon light comes in. The name is ours. It always was. We just had to wait for it to come home the right way. It took 14 months. It was worth every single one. Here is my question for you. If your mother-in-law named her pet the baby name you had shared with her in confidence, would you have changed the name, or kept it, and let the family adjust? Ntaytaesh or nah? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. There is something about this story I have not told you. Something small that I think about more than the large parts. On the night, we decided to name the baby Eloise. We were sitting on the couch and it was late, and the list was on my phone, and Jake said the name without looking for it. He just said it. Into the air of the room. And I looked up from the phone and I said, "Say it again." He said Eloise. And I said, "Yes. That one." But what I have not told you is what happened next. I put the phone down and I said to him, "Does it bother you?" He said, "What?" I said that we found a name we love because someone took the one we had. That the name we are going to give our daughter came from loss. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The name came from us. From this couch. At 11 at night when you had a list and I just said a word." He said, "Donna did not give us this name. She just moved us to the couch where we found it." I sat with that. I said, "That is either very wise or extremely generous of you." He said, "Maybe both." I said, "Eloise." He said, "Eloise." We sat in the quiet of our house with the name in the air between us, and I thought about all the names we had discarded over months, and how none of them had landed the right way, and how the right way had turned out to be a Tuesday night on a couch after someone had taken the name we thought was ours and given us, without meaning to, the space to find the one that actually was. Donna had wanted to be the announcer, the one who knew first and shared widest. She had taken our name and made an announcement, and 347 people had liked it. But the announcement that mattered was the one Jake made on our couch at 11 on a Tuesday. Not to 347 people. To me. In the quiet of our own house. That is the announcement that is on Eloise's birth certificate. That is the one in the morning light. That is the one the dog watches over. Nobody liked it. Nobody tagged anyone. It was just ours. Completely and entirely ours. That is the only kind worth having. I want to tell you one more thing. About Jake and his mother now, a year and 2 months after the dog came home. Because I know what you are wondering, and I know the ending people hope for with stories like this. And I want to tell you the real version, not the clean version. Jake and Donna have a relationship. It is not the relationship they had before. It is smaller and more careful, and there are things that do not get shared with her anymore. A specific category of things that she demonstrated, clearly and without ambiguity, that she cannot hold without transforming them into announcements. Jake knows what falls in that category now. He guards it without making the guarding feel like punishment. He sees his mother. He calls her. He lets her come on the second Sunday. He watches her play with Eloise and take her photographs and send them to his uncle, and he is, I think, managing something that is neither forgiveness exactly nor the absence of it. Something more like a clear-eyed acceptance of who she is, combined with the decision about how much of what is ours she can reach. I have my own relationship with Donna now, that is different from what it was. Not warm in the old easy way. Something more considered. The way you are with a person who you know has the potential to do something you cannot easily undo, and who seems, in the current version of things, to be choosing not to. You watch, you appreciate. You do not fully relax. But you are present. That is where we are. Eloise is 14 months old, and she says Nora, and she says Mama, and she says more, and she says no, with particular emphasis on the O, which we find both charming and concerning as a preview of the next several years. She says Dada, and she says up, and she has recently begun saying, every time she drops something, which she does deliberately because the word is so satisfying. She does not say Grandma Donna yet. She will. When she does, Donna will be in the room when it happens, because we will make sure of that. Not because Donna has earned the full version of us, but because Eloise has a grandmother who loves her, and Eloise deserves to know that, on the terms that we have built, and in the room that we control. That is the whole thing. All of it. The name on the Instagram post is our dog's name. The name on the birth certificate is our daughter's name. Nobody took either of them. The first one came home. The second one was always ours. I look at the two of them in the morning light, and I know the right things ended up in the right places. That is all there is to say.